President Trump is putting the brakes on an Obama administration plan to lower federal mortgage insurance fees. The plan would have lowered FHA loan fees from 0.85% to 0.60% at the end of this month, just as interest rates are expected to rise. The Obama administration said the move would help expand the pool of qualified home buyers, but in one of his first acts in office, literally on the first day, Trump signed an executive order suspending the plan. The National Association of Realtors estimates that between 750,000 to 850,000 homebuyers will face higher costs as a result of Trump's executive order. In a statement, President William E. Brown said 30,000 to 40,000 new homebuyers will be left on the sidelines in 2017 without the cut. We're disappointed in the decision, but will continue to make the case to reinstate the cut in the months ahead. Of course, joining me now is, again, he's on our panel, Dr. William Spriggs, Chief Economist for the AFL-CIO, Professor of Economics at Howard University. Also joining us, Democratic strategist Julian Epstein as well, and he's Public Affairs and Communications Counselor for LawMedia Group Inc. Bill, any explanation for this?
No, except it continues this belief that anything President Obama did had to be bad. What took place was during the great downturn, all of the mortgage-backed security entities ran into difficulties. So you look at the government-sponsored entities, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac ran into problems, FHA ran into problems, and as a result, FHA got bailed out, as did Fannie and Freddie. They have now since paid back the Treasury. They increased in 5 different steps the mortgage insurance that they were charging people as a way to make sure that they could recoup and then build back up their reserve for the uneventual or bad outcome that somebody defaulted on their mortgage. They have now built those capital reserves back up. They're at the level that they're supposed to be. In fact, they're rising above that level. And it is for that reason that FHA already has enough in reserve that the President Obama, felt that he could lower the mortgage interest payment that people needed to make. That insurance payment for most people can run anywhere from $500 to $800 a year. The other adjustment is that you can eventually buy your way out of the insurance once you get it back to where it would be conforming. So if I continue to pay on my mortgage and I get back to where I now have 20% equity, which would have been sort of like a typical down payment, then I wouldn't have to pay the insurance anymore. So what this did is to charge people unnecessarily this extra amount of money that will just build up a reserve for FHA and charge them even after they don't need to have mortgage insurance. President Obama was correcting the situation, putting the government on the side of people, having the government do what the government's supposed to do, which is not gouge people. And then the first thing President Trump does is say, no, I want to gouge the American people.
Julian, he did this first day. The first day, I'm for every man, the folks who've been overlooked. This is helping those who need assistance with interest rates. And this is literally one of his first acts as president.
Yeah, well, you asked the question to Bill, is there a reason why President Trump might do it, a reasonable reason that he might? And there is a reasonable reason that the Republicans can argue, which is to maintain the solvency of the FHA. The FHA is basically a system where the government, federal government, co-signs loans so that low-income people can get houses. President Obama, in fact, raised the rate 3 or 4 times in order to protect the solvency of the FHA. But as Bill points out, the solvency of the FHA is pretty well established at this point. There are obviously concerns as you have the traditional banks moving out of FHA loans and banks like lenders like Quicken Loans and Penny Mac and others who have a little bit more of a kind of a shady background, if you will. So there's a little bit of concern to maintain the solvency of the FHA. But the bottom line here is that this is going to be a tax on low-income people that want to buy homes of somewhere between $500 and $1,000 a year, and somewhere between 40 and 50,000 people that would otherwise be able to get homes might not be able to get them now. So this is a there are going to be many taxes on low-income people as a result of the Trump administration. And the people that voted, the working class people that voted for Donald Trump, are going to have a rude awakening when they find out he's not going to be able to deliver on much, and he's going to start raising their taxes. And here was one example where effectively he's putting a de facto tax on low-income people.
That's the reason I use the hashtag "We tried to tell you," Steve. And this is a perfect example. This is a perfect example. Screwing low-income folks in one of your first acts as president.
Well, we've only had 3 days on a job. Why don't we give him 6 months?
No, I'm not giving him 6 damn months. No. See, I'm not doing that crap of, oh, give him time. The first day, he screws low-income people who are trying to get a home. So again, I mean, just explain to me why. Why, out of all the things that you can do, this is one of his first acts? Why?
Well, it's what he said, that they want to make sure that they have adequate balances. Now, one thing.
But they already have adequate balances.
Well, obviously they thought they wanted to have them higher. But I'll tell you where I agree. I agree with him that once you pay off 20% of down payment, you should not be charged. So I don't agree with the action in its totality. I just don't. But before
the symbolism is really bad here, and Abe's anxious to hear what you want to say. The symbolism is bad because here you have on day one they are putting a de facto tax on low-income home buyers. In the same way, what they did in the voting rights case, I'm sorry to miss the discussion on that. In the voting rights case, the Justice Department is going in and asking for a 30-day delay. They will probably not join the plaintiffs in the Texas case. And, you know, with respect to voter ID, I just have to disagree with you. I listened to the segment. I just have to disagree with you. And I have to say, with all due respect, I think you seem like a really nice guy. Republicans just don't want black people to vote. And they don't want brown people to vote. And I'll tell you why. If you read,
I mean, you're talking to an Italian American with olive skin, and you're telling me they don't want brown people to vote.
Let me tell you, if you read the court decision, if you read the federal district court decision, it was the evidence was just overwhelming.
Hold on a second.
That not only let me finish the point.
All right.
Not only was the effect to make it difficult because of the nature of the IDs that were used in the Texas case, was it going to have a disproportionate effect on black and Latino voters, but that the intent was to do it. And the court, the evidence was overwhelming. You have the most conservative appeals court in the country, the Fifth Circuit in Louisiana, agreeing with the federal district court's holding.
Let me answer something.
Not on the intent issue, but certainly on the effect issue.
Not on the intent issue.
But certainly on the effect issue.
Two different federal judge panels, one a 3-person panel and one the unanimous panel, both ruled there was not.
There is no reason. There is no reason for there is no evidence in this country whatsoever of in-person fraud. The only purpose of these voter ID laws, this has been studied. You had court. This has been studied to death.
Do you know about the
there is no evidence.
1 second, we're bringing Avis. Avis, go ahead.
But let me just ask you. Do you know about the
Steve.
There are outlier examples. There is no evidence. There is no evidence that we have an in-person voting process.
Avis, go ahead.
I think in terms of both of these issues, both the voting rights issue and the issue with regards to putting basically a tax or taking out of reach the possibility of home ownership for some of the most vulnerable Americans and some of those who are really reaching and working hard to get that American dream is this. It's the fundamental thought within the Republican Party that there are those segments of Americans that are deserving and there are those segments of Americans that are undeserving of the right to vote, undeserving of a right to own a home. And there is no other reason to explain what's going on here, which is insidious, which has happened over years, which is now going to accelerate when we look at who's going to be in charge of justice, when we look at who's going to be in charge of HUD, and specifically with this issue with regards to the FHA. When we had Donald Trump trot out a Steve Harvey in front of cameras, when we have him putting in place a surgeon who knows absolutely nothing about housing, and when you have those types of individuals that he's putting in front of cameras, trying to somehow subliminally suggest to black people that he's in our corners. And then on the very first day in office, he does this. It shows you where he's really at. He doesn't care about extending home ownership opportunities to those people who are working hard every day to make it happen, but are just a little bit short and needed that extra help. He is there to help people like himself to enrich themselves more and not helping the little guy. I don't care what color you are.
Bill, final comment before I go to the break, real quick.
it's a little misleading to say low income. These are middle income people. They're buying homes that are $500,000. That's not low income people.
Oh, hell no.
But this goes further to a pattern. So for low-income people, the uncertainty that's been created by we're going to do all these corporate tax giveaways has created panic in the the affordable housing tax credit. That's a credit which corporations are playing off. What am I going to have to pay in taxes versus what is this tax credit going to get me? Lower tax rates is chasing corporations and banks out of that low-income tax credit market, making it more difficult to build affordable housing. So we're going to get this double whammy. We have this uncertainty that this administration is creating that's affecting the low and affordable housing tax credit. We have this attack on people who are recovering from the downturn. Maybe they had a foreclosure, maybe they had a bankruptcy, so their credit score isn't the 711 that's the median for the country. It's a little below that, and for FHA, their credit scores are below that. But these are people who had a home, got hurt, they're trying to get back into the market. These are middle-class people working hard, trying to just get into the market, and boom, I'm going to ping them and make them pay more money than is necessary for the government.
On the first day.
On the first day.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.